As the clock ticked closer to the event, she began to practice her presentation. Imagining herself standing before her friends, she rehearsed her words aloud, fighting through the anxiety. This is a version of a family dish, one that honors the past while looking forward. The more she spoke, the more confidence grew. She envisioned the smiles on her grandchildren's faces, the sense of pride mingling with approval. It was not just about the food, it was about the story, a story that could evolve like she was. And yet, lurking beneath the surface was the looming question: would her family accept this new chapter? Would they embrace the quieter flavors, or would they recoil in disappointment? The idea of disappointment made her stomach drop with unease, but she pushed those thoughts aside. The fears would forever be there, a persistent shadow in the corners of her mind, but she understood now that they could not dictate her journey. By the time she finished packing her dish, she felt as though she had created more than just a meal. She crafted a piece of her heart, a testament to resilience, filled with hopes and fears battling for supremacy. As she left her home, the air thick with anticipation, she internally steeled herself. What lay ahead was an uncertain response to her effort, but she knew she had crossed a threshold. She could no longer face her past with weakness. The cook-off loomed large, and as she approached the venue, her thoughts collided with reality. Margaret took a deep breath, shifting the weight of her creation in her hands as she prepared to step into the future. Little did she know, a confrontation would soon occur, one that would make her question everything, every fear, every ambition, every decision she had made. Now, standing on the brink, facing the crowd ahead, she knew something pivotal was about to unfold. What awaited her in this moment of truth would change everything. As Margaret stepped through the entrance of the venue, a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds enveloped her senses. The energy buzzed with excitement, yet it felt like a tether binding her to both anticipation and anxiety. Gargantuan banners adorned with vibrant food pictures loomed above, and the hum of voices echoed, mingling with the clinks of cookware. Her heart raced as she surveyed the crowd, familiar faces filled with curiosity and warmth, mixed with a few skeptical glances that didn't go unnoticed. Had she made a mistake, presenting something so fundamentally different from the recipes of her past? The air thickened with the delicious aroma of competing dishes, each pulling her thoughts deeper into the endless loop of comparison. Margaret's stomach churned in rhythm to the pulse of her nerves. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed her dish on the communal table. The quinoa salad, a tapestry of colors, blended brilliantly, but felt, in this moment, too vulnerable. Her mind raced. What if they didn't see the spirit behind the ingredients? Would her sister understand the meaning behind the unconventional flavor combinations? The knot in her stomach tightened, but she fought back the doubt. "It is to me," Margaret answered, the firmness in her voice bolstered by the realization that the future of their relationship depended on her willingness to engage honestly. "Okay, show me." Jessica stepped toward her, inviting but cautious. It was an opening, perhaps the one she had longed for, but never anticipated. As she prepared to present her dish to the judging panel, she glanced at Jessica, who hesitated, allowing Margaret to take the lead.
The apprehension of the judges didn't matter as much now. Her focus sharpened, centering on this unexpected ally in the battle against her fears. This was a presentation for both the audience and her sister, and she realized just how vital authenticity was. Today, I'm sharing a quinoa salad with notes of lime, a dash of spice, and a heart full of new narratives, she began, her voice unwavering. The aroma wafting from the bowl was a reflection of the ingredients, but now it echoed her intentions. Each element she described became a bridge, her words and flavors merging to reflect a life transformed. Margaret's heart raced, not just from the stakes of the contest, but from the emotions tethered to her sister's presence. It was raw, unfiltered, and utterly necessary. Could she dismantle the past while rebuilding alongside Jessica? As the presentation finished, the room echoed with applause, but Margaret's eyes were on Jessica, searching for signs of understanding, a facet of connection amidst the applause. Had she managed to convey her journey? Would they stand together in this new narrative? Before Jessica could respond, the whistle blew again, signaling the judge's feedback, but Margaret could hardly hear it. Her attention was drawn to her sister's face, poised on the edge of revelation or ambivalence. Would this present a turning point for both women? Margaret sensed, without a doubt, that something significant hovered just beyond reach. As Jessica opened her mouth to speak, the weight of the moment felt electrifying. Could forgiveness and acceptance reshape their story? With her future on the line, Margaret braced herself for whatever revelation Jessica was about to share. The path toward reconciliation lay ahead, yet something told her it was only the beginning of a much deeper confrontation. Jessica hesitated, her mouth opening then closing, as if weighing words that carried the weight of years. Margaret's pulse quickened, the applause faded into the background, leaving an almost deafening silence. The moment felt suspended, as if the entire room awaited Jessica's verdict. "What you did today, it's impressive," Jessica said, her tone searching. "But I need you to understand something. For so long, I've only seen the version of you that didn't care about anything but winning."
We can't just stare in non-gradientes without addressing the old ones. Jessica's expression grew serious, yet resolute. Yes, we can't avoid those conversations forever, but maybe we could explore them together. Margaret's heart swelled con a mix de anticipación y trepidación. She was aware que a road ahead wouldn't be easy. It would likely require exposure to deeper layers of regret e insecurities. Nende menos, she trusted that reclaiming their relationship meant embracing those challenges. Together, then, Margaret affirmed. As they leaned into this renewed understanding, the weight of the past didn't dissolve entirely, but it felt lighter somehow, as if a new energy replaced the old stagnant air. The moment was a kindling, yet the fire's heat still flickered with uncertainty. What lay ahead felt daunting, and as Jessica's features transformed into a tentative smile, Margaret realized that genuine growth often came from navigating the vulnerable spaces between safety and risk. But as their conversation deepened,
a question nagged at Margaret. Their journey forward might still eclipse what had kept them apart. Jessica's complicated emotions hung in the balance, and Margaret suddenly feared they might not be ready to confront the truths that had lingered for too long. Would they finally dare to unearth the shadows that whispered betrayal and ashamed disappointment? As Margaret's hand brushed against Jessica's, she felt the stakes shift once more. The horizon thick with the promise of both challenges and revelations. The path toward authentic connection seemed to unfurl ahead, but the hardest parts were still uncharted territories waiting to be faced. What were they truly willing to sacrifice for reconciliation? Margaret could feel the electric charge of possibilità hum between her and Jessica. The ambiance of the room, once lively with cheers and laughter, now felt like a sacred space where honesty flourished. Their conversations took on a new texture, as if each word was a delicate yet powerful ingrediente in a dish still coming together. As they sat together side by side, Margaret couldn't help but reflect on her transformation since the beginning of this journey. She had traded the superficiality of mere competition for a newfound depth of self-awareness, a curiosity. It was exhilarating, but also frightening. Questions began to emerge, probing the internal conflicts she had carefully kept at bay. Who was she becoming? Would this newfound vulnerability make her weaker or stronger? "Do you think we can truly change?" Jessica's voice broke through Margaret's reverie. The concern etched on her sister's face was palpable. It was a question layered with the weight of history, a gamble on whether the past would dominar their future. Margaret took a moment, drawing strength from her own experiences. "Yes," she responded, her voice steady, "but we have to accept that it won't be easy."
Would their commitment to honesty unravel into caos ou vivo um novo tapestre de sorker conexão? E just as a thought sparked in her mind, it twisted further. What parts would they risk losing no processo? Hovering on the brink of vulnerability, their conversation felt almost monumental. The hour was late, yet the ar cracailed com antecipação. Neither of them knew como navegar este intricado estudo de relacionamentos e emoções, mas com cada ingrediente de ardos a expor, também revelavam seu potencial para crescimento. Only time would tell se their experiment would suceder ou falhar. As Margaret extingeu glance com Jessica, as charges de possibilidade pulsou em cada fibra de seu ser. Would they emergir vitoriosos ou drenched em dúvida? Novo capítulo lumia pela frente, com calças passos veiras terem de explorar. "Let's unwrap our truths," Margaret whispered, sua voz steady despeite a incerteza. The journey ahead aguardava, untouched território, brilhando com perigo e promessa. Era risco válido tomar, mas a que custo? Margaret's mind swelled with incerteza as simula over as implicações de seu pacto. A mostra de sua irmã's gaze, fila com mix de esperança e apreensão, mirava sua própria interna conflito. Ditei-a possuir a strength necessária para expor seus dedos mais profundos e regretos?
As they faced each other, it felt like the moment had cristalizado. This was it, the point of no return. Ok, she'd said, sua voz soft mas resolute. Where do we start? Jessica ponderou, suas brows knitando em pensar. Maybe we begin with our biggest professional disappointments, those moments that twisted the knife but ultimately taught us something valuable. The electricity na ar thickened. Margaret nodou, feeling suar throat constrict, as suas próprias falhas rosrem ambidens ao surgirem. Uma cacofonia de memórias que buzavam como relentosas gatas. I'll go first, she offered, tomando ar. Last year, I lost a key competition that would have defined my career. I poured everything into it, mas I froze durante a final presentation. A shiver raced down her spine as she relived the moment, tsunami de self-doubt crashando over her quando materno most. I thought I was prepared, mas in that instant eu felt completely inadequate. It was devastating e espilou over em todo parte de minha vida. Eu felt like I let everyone down, especially myself. I felt that too, Jessica replied, suar tone softer. It was hard watching you struggle. It was isolating. Margaret reconheceu a verdade em suas palavras. They and both had become so ensnared in their competition that they neglected to support each other. What did you wish you'd done differently? Jessica's eyes flickered as considerando the question. I think I wish you'd leaned into vulnerability instead. Instead of pushing everyone away, I should have communicated that I was scared. Eu let pride controlar minhas decisões.
They estrejaram contemplativo silêncio, o ar tornando denso com char de entendimento. Margaret felt pulso de empatia, realizando justamente quão deepmente seus passos haviam interligado, esculpindo não apenas seus carreiras, mas seus identidades em sisters. Do you remember the family gathering where Dad discussed his disappointment in his own career? Jessica asked. A tone shiftou slightly, gentil probing question que esparcou uniez em Margaret. Yeah, Margaret murmured, recordando longo ago conversação, momento marcado pelos dessonhos de seu pai. Mas não pode comparar a como nós abordamos life, Codet? Não, enfatizou Jessica. Mas acho que nos shapeou into competitivas pessoas que eram often afraid to be seen as anything but winners. Esse desapontamento became an echo we couldn't shake off. Margaret felt rush de clareza. It wasn't just the competitions that defined their worth. Era seu wrestle com familiares expectativas, seu need por validação. Com cada palavra que passava entre elas, Margaret felt like she was peeling away layers de uma long-neglected onion, expondo o rocor de sua experiência. What if confronting these truths means we can finally liberate ourselves? She suggested, sua voz tremendo com opo. Jessica inalou sharpmente, eyes shining. Then we've got to keep going. O que estamos fazendo, deshonesty, desvulnerabilidade, é o único caminho. Podemos estropeçar, mas vamos crescer all the while, right? Right, Margaret echoed. Yet unease again wrapped around her as she considered what other truths remained buried. Let's not stop here, Margaret urged, adrenalina coursando por suas veias. Tell me about a professional risk you took that didn't pay off. Jessica hesitou. A confiança retrocedendo, as shadows de dúvida cruzaram seus feitiços. Margaret sensou os muros emocionais começarem a subir. What did you feel quando learned you hadn't been selected for that prestigious workshop? Margaret pressed gentilmente.
Foi fer de falha ou something deeper? Dessa falha flicou em Jéssica's olhos agora, mingando com ângar. I felt exposed, like eu não era digna de seu investimento, seu belief. It hurt. Eu acreditava eu ser boa o suficiente, e eu crumpei ante essa realização. Margaret remanesceu silêncio, alamendo Jéssica a afundar na máscara de sua verdade, sentindo o protetivo urge borbulhar. Deste discussão estava mais reveladora do que antecipada. Why do you think you crumpled? She probed, sua voz estédia yet compassiva. Because, Jessica whispered, suas mãos tremendo. I've always feared being just another name in a list. Eu achava que posicionando-me para sucesso validaria a mim. Mas what if é minha o estar tentando provar errado? Aquela little girl que often felt not good enough. Em dessa mesma momento, a sala parecia pulsar com a gravidade de suas revelações. Eram duas sisters estacadas abaixo de conflito e entrelaçadas por bardas comuns.
Maybe we're both just scared, Margaret concludou. Scared de not being enough e of losing what we thought defined us. But this conversation, these truths, they could be the spark we need to reescrever nossas narrativas. Jéssica's gaze intensificou, o ar tingido com construtiva fúria. Então, let's allow them to guide us. Margaret felt uma familiar determinação take root. Autêntico desejo de weather this storm alongside her sister. This struggle, não mais burden, mas charjado aventura em descoberta. However, nagging fear crawled back into her thoughts, whisperando doubts she had hoped to silence. What if their honesty unraveled too much? What if their explorations created rifts too wide to bridge? As they moved deeper into their shared ordeal, Margaret sensed uma oportunidade rising on the horizon. They needed to confront not only their fears, mas also the external perceptions that shaped their lives in ways they had never acknowledged. E in that pivotal moment, Margaret realized que a journey would demandar more than her truths. It would requerer uma recalibração der very identidades, shift que podia ou bondar-les ou brecar-les aparte. Yes, she whispered, her resolve strengthening. Mas tentenas, have we dug deep enough to face what lies ahead? A pergunta lingueira no ar, latentes com implicações. As Meg e Jéssica ficavam teiterando no precipício de seu futuro, rédeas a plonjar into unknown. Margaret's heart raced as she shifted the weight of their unresolved conversation, burdened by the prospect de delving even deeper. O rum felt both familiar e foreign, os muras ecoando com os remanentes de childhood, now shadowed por adult despair. What would confronting our feelings truly look like? She thought, escaneando o dull decor por inspiração. Ok, let's try this, Jéssica said, levantando seu queixo defiantemente. What about the risks we've taken beyond competitions? What about the choices we made to fit into the roles expected of us? A challenge hung in a air electric. Margaret inhalou sharply. It was daring pivot, peeling back yet on a layer de seu história.
Eu nunca tomei aquela internship em Nova York porque achava que me mudaria muito. Eu temia que a ambição me soloasse todo, admitiu, seu voz bariamente abaixo de um sussurro. Eu lembro disso. Você estava tão afobada de ser labelada como algo tão egra, tão rica para sucesso, Jéssica probou, sua curiosidade picada. Mas não era isso que você queria? Era, Margaret respondeu, frustração pulando por trás os olhos. Eu queria provar que era válida para aquele espaço. Mas o fer de ser tu muito me deixou atrás. Quando querer mais virou algo a apologiar. Jéssica tocou seu cabelo atrás das orelhas, seu expressão shiftando para um de entendimento. É societário, não é? Nós sempre fomos ensinados a atonar, a ser justo o suficiente, não para ser trementes.
The stakes were high. Your path ahead was tumultuous, ripe on potential pitfalls. Can we really be brave enough? She asked, a hesitant tremor in sua voice, honesty lingering in the room. As the question echoed into silence, both sisters understood that the next step would not only test their courage, but also challenge the very fabric of who they believed themselves to be. Then let's carve our own paths, no matter how hard it becomes, Jessica proclaimed, igniting a stirring fervor. With a commitment made in the sacred space of that room, they prepared to sow the seeds of transformation. But as they leaned into this newfound resolve, was it possible that their greatest obstacles lay not just within, but also in confronting those who would resist their ascension? Margaret's heart tightened with the implications of the journey ahead. Would they find allies in each other, or would the world demand sacrifices that neither of them had prepared to make? Margaret sat on the frayed couch, fingers drumming against her knee as doubts swirled. Light filtered gently through the half-drawn curtains, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the still air. She'd ignited a flame with her sister, but would it flicker out under the weight of reality? The determination she had mustered felt fragile, like a potter's clay still wet and vulnerable. Let's start small, she suggested, taking a deep breath to steady herself. We could each choose one risk to take this week. Something tangible that makes us uncomfortable but could also be empowering. Jessica glanced sideways, a flicker of surprise crossing her features. You mean like your internship idea? Or maybe me pitching that blog? Yes, but I was thinking more about the everyday, Margaret amended quickly, not wanting to share her internal turmoil just yet. What if you try cooking a new recipe and post it online, regardless of what people might think? And I could reach out to that local gallery to see if they have opportunities available. Maybe I can even ask for feedback on my art. A spark ignited in Jessica's eyes, but then her expression closed up, concern shadowing her features. What if we both fail? What if we become the joke we so dread? What if, Margaret echoed, feeling the weight of that question throb in the air. The what if was both a burden and a liberating possibility. But what if this is how we start redefining ourselves? What if we fail, but learn from it? Jessica's resolve wavered as she let the thought linger.
It's terrifying, you know, putting ourselves out there again. That's exactly it, Margaret pressed, her heart racing. By risking ourselves, we rediscover who we can be without the fear of condemnation. We're allowed to be imperfect. Jessica nodded slowly, a hint of a smile surfacing. Okay, a recipe it is, and if you pitch your work, maybe something will click. Margaret's chest tightened with anticipation, but also dread.
Standing there, she reflectou na transformação sparked by her culinary experimentation e, ultimamente, o seu deeper dive into personal discovery. It felt as though she had not only revamped her recipes, but also revolutionized her very approach to life. The once muted tones of her griefy anxiety no longer dictated the palette of her existence. She had taken a plunge to foster change, not drained of memories, but enriched with fresh understanding. The dish that she had presented durante the cook-off had become a metaphor. The quinoa salad had brought acceptance, taste, and a mark of courage that resonated far beyond the ingredients. Claire's voice rang in her ears, the encouragement manifesting now as a solid foundation beneath her feet. "You can reinvent yourself," Claire had said, and Margaret realized just how true that statement had become. The recognition she craved from her family had shifted from dependence on approval to celebrating her journey, no matter how messy. Her relationship with Jessica had shifted too. Their conversations now intertwined honesty with vulnerability, creating a new connection that felt fearless. They revealed their deepest fears, taking the time to recover lost moments. The kitchen had become a sanctuary again, filled with laughter and shared recipes instead of silence. Together, they had discovered the strength in shared stories, unveiling their pasts and risking their futures. Margaret turned to the counter, her heart swelling with a sense of accomplishment. She began prepping for the community showcase, glancing at the menu she had curated, an array of innovative, healthier options that combined nostalgia with new beginnings. Each ingredient was a stepping stone, each dish a declaration of her growth. As time passed, the showcase approached. The moments spent in reflection had refined her understanding of her role, not merely as a cook, but as a storyteller. In those new culinary creations, she had woven elements of her past, present, and future. And as she stood before the attendees, she felt an undeniable surge of confidence. The showcase unfolded, and Margaret presented her dish with pride. Every word that escaped her lips resonated with her journey of loss and reclamation. It was no longer just about food. It was about connection, family, and navigating through uncertainty with grace. They applauded not just the taste, but the spirit, a taste born from resilience. After her presentation, the whispers of approval floated through the crowd. Each nod, each congratulatory smile felt like a warm pat on the back, affirming her place in that community. Feeling buoyed, she spotted Jessica in the audience, an expression of shared gladness beaming across her face. Their journey had yielded something invaluable,
an understanding that both sisters could reforge their identities and mend their relationship, standing empowered as the women they had always aspired to become.
In that moment, Margaret couldn't help but feel a gentle warmth wash over her. She had conquered not only her fears surrounding food, but also those cloaked in familial expectations. She had achieved independency without losing herself as shadows of her past. That night, as she savored the triumph of her hard-earned success, she realized with a profound sense of peace. This was not just a new chapter, it was the beginning of a wholly redefined legacy. Embracing the shift in her identity, she walked into her kitchen with newfound wisdom. Cooking would always be an act intertwined with stories, comfort, and love. But now it was also one of courage, a testament to resilience. Margaret had cleared the cobwebs of self-doubt and emerged victorious. She was no longer just the matriarch under siege, but a pioneer weaving her family's narrative with intention and clarity. It was time to share her journey. Each recipe, every story, a call to those who, too, found themselves navigating choppy waters. Engaging with her audience was the next step, a chance to amplify their voices and show them they need not fear the fool of creativity. It was time to not only celebrate her journey, but to ignite fires in others. As she reflected on how far she had come, an overwhelming urge to inspire surged within her. She could finally articulate what she needed. And so she sat down, opened her laptop, and created a blog. A platform where she could magnify her voice, share her struggles, battles in the kitchen, and celebrate unfiltered moments of triumph. A place to connect with the very essence of who she had become. Margaret had found her identity, her voice, and more importantly, she had reclaimed the joy of cooking, not only for herself, but for her family and the community around her. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.